How's it going, American History 2 students? This is Mr. Bell coming back at you with another video lesson. Today we're actually going to be doing a little bit more as far as reading activities are concerned. It's a short one, so don't worry. Not trying to overwork you during this crazy time. But before we get into any of that, before we get into our warm-up, I got about 3 more slides left to finish up this Black History Month PowerPoint that I made that I didn't get to finish because of the birth of my son. So today we're going to start with Brian Stilfreeze. He is an African-American comic book artist, one of the first to get their own book at either Marvel or DC Comics. Now, he had done art here and there for Domino, she's in the X-Men if you didn't know, and Catwoman, but he really got his breakout gig when he was asked to do the art for Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther, which the release of that book coincided with the movie, so it was a big deal. And it was a big deal for Marvel and comics and society. Laura Martin, you see there, one of the best colorists in the game. So if you don't know, when you look at a comic, you usually have the writer, the artist, the colorist. The artist do the black and white pencils, usually on a computer now, and the colorist goes back and fills that in. He's from Atlanta, Georgia. So that's Brian Stilfreeze. If you're interested in his stuff, look him up. Let's go ahead and get into our warm-up. Today is day 151 of 180 if this was normal school year. It is COVID-19 shutdown day 25. That's just counting school days, of course, not weekends. This is your lesson for Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. And this is going to review some stuff from earlier on in Unit 5, Part 1. We're talking about all kinds of World War II stuff here. The secret building of the atomic bomb was called what? The Manhattan Project. Los Alamos Labs, you had Oppenheimer and Einstein. The atomic bombs were dropped where in Japan? Hiroshima, and then when they still didn't surrender, Nagasaki. What president ordered the dropping of the atomic bombs in Japan? It's not Roosevelt, like some people think. It is Truman. He had taken over after Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, had died of polio. So to review these 3, the first one is the Manhattan Project. The second one is Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the third one is Harry S. Truman. Talk more about him as we go from Unit 5, Part 1 to Unit 5, Part 2. So today's lesson, the reading activity we're going to do is focusing on the Nanking incident, a horrific event in which Japan invaded Manchuria, which is part of China, and killed and did a lot of other horrendous things to the Chinese people there in their homeland, and you had over 200,000 people who were killed in the span of 8 weeks. So this is to the Pacific theater almost what the Holocaust is to the European theater. Now it's kind of in reverse here, because you think about in Europe, the Jews are being targeted because of their religion. But when you talk about over here in Japan, they're orchestrating these bad things and horrendous, heinous things toward the Chinese because of the Shinto religion. They may do these bad things, but they believe that the emperor, who has been sent from God to give them orders, and his word is the direct order of God, it's all okay, no matter how bad these might be. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to focus on the 2 different perspectives here. I'm going to try to zoom in here so you guys can see. Let's go with 150. There we go. Hopefully you guys can see that well at home. So we have 2 different perspectives of this event. Document A is the Japanese perspective. And I'm going to email this to you. It's on Canvas right now as well, so you don't have to rely on this video to see the reading here. And document B is the Chinese textbook perspective. Now, neither one of these is going to give you a great understanding because they're both secondary sources, meaning they're not told from somebody who was actually on the ground. They're told based on accounts that people have heard and rewritten. I just wanted to do it for this case to kind of see how this is taught in Chinese schools versus how it's taught in Japanese schools. So, I'm going to read through these, and then I'm going to tell you which ones you need to answer. There's 3 for A. There's 5 for B. You're not going to be answering all of these if you stay tuned throughout the remainder of this video. Let's start with document A. This comes from the New History Textbook, translated by the Japanese Society for History Textbook Reform, published in 2005, the year I graduated high school. It's been 15 years ago. So, the following is an excerpt from the Japanese New History Textbook. The textbook was created by the Japanese Society for History Textbook Reform and was first published in 2005. The book was supposed to be the new standard for all high school students in Japan. So let's read through this together. I'm going to start with the first paragraph. And again, remember, we're looking at the Japanese perspective here. In August 1937, 2 Japanese soldiers were shot to death in Shanghai, the largest city in China. After this incident, the hostilities between Japan and China escalated, which probably became more intense. Japanese military officials thought Chiang Kai-shek, the Chinese leader, would surrender if they captured Nanking, which was the capital of China. Of course, now it's Beijing when you look at the overall capital of China. Japanese forces took over the city in December, but Chiang Kai-shek had moved his capital to a remote city of Chongqing. The conflict continued. Going down to the next paragraph. Note, at this time, many Chinese soldiers and civilians were killed or wounded by Japanese troops. This is known as the Nanking Incident. However, historical evidence has raised doubts about the actual number of victims killed or injured during the incident. No clear evidence has been found showing Japanese military police officials took Chinese women by force or rape. So when you read about the Nanking Incident, you will see in almost any account you read that sadly rape was a key component that the Japanese used to torture the Chinese. And the death at the low end, the estimate as shown in my notes, is 200,000. So is this going to be the most accurate portrayal of what happened? No. And the reason is the Japanese don't want to make themselves to look bad when they're teaching their own history to their high school students. Now, it's similar to us. We don't go into depth with how the Native Americans were treated by the American government, maybe as much as we should, because we don't want to make ourselves look bad. So let's go to document B. Here we're going to the Chinese textbook. The following is an excerpt from Chinese history textbook for high school, the state-sponsored textbook for high schools in modern-day China. This textbook was published in 1998. The Nanking Massacre, so here they call it a massacre, not an incident, which is probably a more accurate description of what it was. In December 1937, the Japanese military captured Nanking. The Japanese military committed bloody atrocities against the residents of Nanking and prisoners of war, killing them in extremely cruel methods, including mass execution, burning, burying alive, beheading, and biting by dogs. They're going a little bit more in depth, not getting too graphic about the kinds of things that were done to the Chinese people as a result of the IJA, the Imperial Japanese Army. The Nanking Massacre was the most horrible event in world history. Maybe to them that's obviously subjective. I mean, when you think about things like slavery, how the Indians were treated, the Holocaust, I mean, I don't know if you can come out and say that. Of course, that's their country's perspective. According to statistics, the estimate of deaths caused by Japanese atrocities against unarmed Nanking residents amounted to more than 300,000. That's more than I had in my notes, and definitely more, as it said, it could not be tallied in document A when we were looking at the Japanese perspective. Just during the 6 weeks of occupation, so I had it in my notes as 8, they're saying this happened in 6. Japanese military. Between 200,000 and 80, I mispronounced with that number in there. Between 20,000, not 200, between 20,000 and 80,000 Chinese women were raped. Here they say that did happen. That was said it was not proven when you look at what the Japanese textbook was saying. And many soldiers did things worse than rape. They disemboweled, meaning they gutted women, and nailed them alive to walls. The Nanking Massacre is one of the greatest acts of violence perpetrated by the Japanese aggressors on the Chinese people. That's inarguable in my opinion. The Japanese were so brutal in Nanking that even their Nazi allies in the city were shocked. If you're shocking the Nazis, you're obviously doing something pretty bad. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pick one of these to do. Either A, or B. I'm not telling you which one to do. If I was picking, if you want some guidance, I would do B. I would do the Chinese textbook just because I think that's a more accurate description of what happened historically. But you can pick, okay? You can do Japanese textbook A. You don't have to do both. Or you can do the Chinese textbook. It doesn't matter if you're doing document A or B. All you're answering is question 1 and question 2. So you're either answering document A 1 and 2, document B 1 or 2, and share that with me how you've been doing that. And I'm looking for a sentence to 3 at most. I'm not looking for a book written here. I'm trying to get you information. I'm trying to expose you to reading activities. Obviously, I'm not throwing on you what I would in class because this is an unprecedented time, and I'm not trying to overload you with work, but I don't want you to miss out on this information. So thank you for clicking play. Thank you for taking the time to watch the end of this video. I hope this video helps you with that reading activity. Please, if you have any questions, email me at bsbell@clevelandcountyschools.org. Thank you so much. Miss you guys. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Wash your hands.